Okay, greetings, citizens. Justiguy has arrived and returned to what is probably the last time I'll be playing or reading Tatarigoroshi. God, and I'm still not used to these noise-canceling headphones, and if anyone pops in at any time and wants to tell me how the audio is doing, because this is only stream 2 of the new audio set. Oh, and there's the fireworks. Yeah. Let me know if the audio is all wonky, and I'll do what I can, or go back to the old setup, which I feel like this is a. I cannot get used to how I sound. Not. Anyway. Yeah, let's just get started. Hopefully, I'll be able to just ignore it once we get going. And I believe we read the tips. Uh, what was this research notes? Yes, we did read that. All right. Oh, so yeah, we're gonna just hop right in, I suppose. Yes, yes, yes. Continue. All right, let's get ready to cry again. Uh, uh, or what? Oh. Okay. My head was pounding. The sky was bright. It was cold too. It hurt. Each sensation I felt led to a new and different one awakening. When I came to, I was lying face first on a dry riverbed. A few body parts hurt a lot. Others didn't. Others felt perfectly fine, but a few of them, oh, they really hurt. The skin over a bunch of my joints was torn and turned blue or red or oozing blood. Possibly all of those things at once. I could tell it was my bones that were in pain from the agony I felt whenever I moved. I looked up and saw how high the bridge from which I had fallen was. Considering I dropped from there, it was a miracle I could open my eyes again. Right next to me was a broken, upside-down car seat, which I guess some pranksters had brought here. Maybe this thing had been conveniently lying right under me, allowing me to escape instant death. Miraculous. Of course, I didn't know whether this miracle was fortunate or unfortunate. I'd failed to die, and now I was still stuck in this insane world. How long had I been unconscious for? The sun was high in the sky, so it looked like only 1 or 2 hours had passed. But my body's sluggishness didn't make it feel at all like so short a time had gone by. Mentally, mentally, it felt like I'd been asleep here for a decade. Ugh. Ugh. The more feeling returned to my body, the more pain flooded in. It hurt so much it would have been better not to have woken up. I needed to get to a doctor. Yeah. Coach's clinic. The term coach's clinic brought memories back, one after another. Memories I wish I hadn't recalled. Satoko was no longer on the bridge. She would have returned to Hinamizawa by now, and she would put on some clothes, go to the clinic, get a checkup, and report on how crazy I had seemed. The police were waiting for me without a doubt. This time, would they find out for real that I'd killed her uncle and arrest me? Or would they just send me to a mental institution like I thought they might? Still, I didn't care which it was. Please, someone, stop all this pain. You could boil me or cook me after that, whatever you want. I began to walk unsteadily, just limping along. I went downstream and then through an animal trail-like path in the woods. I walked haphazardly, searching for a path I knew. Eventually, I came across a familiar road, set off towards the clinic. Not to my house, but to the clinic, which had treated me like a lunatic. It was hot, humid. There was no wind, and the air was stagnant. For a while now, I've been smelling the terrible stench of burned eggs, and that made my face scrunch up. And then, at last, I noticed something. I didn't hear any cicadas. It was the first time I'd heard Hinamizawa be so utterly silent. I thought back, it seemed like birds always chirped in the morning, cicadas always cried loudly in the afternoon, and Higurashi always rose up in chorus in the evening. Always something to hear. I couldn't hear a single insect. The only thing I could hear was the rustling of the wind brushing the treetops. I'd never experienced this sort of quiet before. Even the only sound coming from the trees lacked life somehow. The trees were yellow, and many leaves spread on the ground despite it being too early for autumn. Even the weeds that had been growing so persistently at the side of the road had yellowed, browned, and lost their vigor. Only sunlight itself was of the June Hinamizawa that I knew. And yet it seemed like the seasons had switched all of a sudden. Looking at the fallen leaves and rotting weeds led me to spot a few small insects turned on their backs. They weren't moving. They were corpses. I looked closer to see insect corpses scattered all around, like a child had collected them as samples and then strewn them about. This stench. What was it? It was terrible, like burned eggs, combined with all the bug corpses and leaves falling from trees in summer. Had someone sprayed herbicides or pesticides around here? Even at school, we apparently fumigate. They call it pest disinfection or something, once or twice a year. I hadn't run into anybody, despite how bright it was outside. It was mid-afternoon, yet it felt like I was sauntering about at midnight. Well, with this smell, nobody would want to be walking around outside. Just what was this anyway? There was no sound, no noise, not even a breath. Hinamizawa. Silent. The school would come into view right after turning this corner, and yet I couldn't hear any commotion at all. None of the shouts or grunts that children always made. It was simply quiet. Just as pretending to ignore the silence, grown intolerable, I saw the school. And finally, I heard something. It was the sound of a few trucks. There were a few very tall trucks parked in the schoolyard, idling. About 10 workers in raincoats were unloading things from their trunks. It was hot and humid even in my casual clothing. I couldn't imagine how unbearable that must have been. And then I remembered. Our school was rented from the Forest Service field office building, wasn't it? It wasn't strange at all for Forest Service trucks to be doing some kind of work in the schoolyard. Besides, what did forest rangers do anyway? I felt bad for them having to work in such heat, and with such a stench about. They were taking colorful cargo out of the truck and lining it up in the oh no. They're lining it up in the schoolyard. They were containers, fairly large ones, inside multicolored patchwork bags. Heavy, too. They were being carried in pairs. They lined them up very neatly, like tuna at a riverside fish market. Several, dozens, hundreds of tuna, completely filling the fairly wide schoolyard up. I forgot my pain for a little while, captivated by this big forest ranger job I'd never seen before. As I stood there, watching in a daze, the people in raincoats working on the other side noticed me. One of them pointed me out and they shouted a few things back and forth. I thought they might yell at me for getting in their way, so I decided to leave post-haste. But then 2 trucks drove up behind me. I stepped aside and they entered the schoolyard. Sheets covered their trunks, but I could tell they were completely full. As they passed, there was an awful smell that made me want to choke. It wasn't the same bird egg smell as before, but an even worse one, like rotten crab meat. What on earth was it? I've been enshrouded in one terrible stench after another all day. Then, certain white letters emblazoned on the side of the passing trucks caught my eye. Ground Self-Defense Forces. What? Self-Defense Forces? Like, the army? Why was the army in the schoolyard? Hey, you! Where did you come from? Suddenly, someone slapped me on the shoulders from behind. Oh, right, that's fireworks. I turned around, and a canopied SDF Jeep was parked there. The SDF person had a green raincoat and a gas mask, like in the movies, carrying a compressed air cylinder. He didn't look normal. There wasn't an inch of exposed skin anywhere. Where did I... Oh, ow! When I tried to talk, I stretched a wound on my head. It made the SDF people exchange glances. I couldn't see their faces through their masks, but they seemed surprised. You live in Hinamizawa. Can you tell us your name and address? Well, yeah, I sort of live here. My name is Keiichi. Mayabara. Oh, and my address. What? Hinamizawa Village. Shishibone. After seeing me tell them my name and address without hesitation, one of the SDF people watching from the Jeep started talking into a radio. Base, do you read? Base, do you read? We have a 402 survivor discovered. I repeat, we have a 402. We've found a survivor. He's in front of the Forest Service office. This is Base. We copy. Secure the survivor at once. What is his status? Healthy. Wounded all over, but not fatally. He can walk on his own. We'll send him to HQ for safety. I was prepared to go along with the police, but the SDF... I couldn't help but think it seemed a little bit much. They urged me into the back of the Jeep, and then they told me to put on this gigantic gas mask. I did so, and one of the troops fiddled around with it, strapping it tightly to me. It was heavy, hard to see out of, hot and difficult to breathe. Just looking at the world through the lenses made it lose its sense of reality. My breathing sounded like some giant monster through the mask. At this point, I had no idea what was happening. With much trepidation, I asked the trooper adjusting my mask, excuse me, has something happened? Where were you? What were you doing? Hey, don't answer a question with more questions. I was the one asking you. I fell from a rope bridge way back in the mountains. I think I passed out on the riverbed. I don't actually know what day it is. Today's June 22nd, 1983, Wednesday. That surprised me. Stantoko pushed me off the bridge on Tuesday the 21st. That meant I'd been asleep on that riverbed for an entire day. Forgive me asking again, but did something happen? Why is the SDF here? Is this a drill? Had my question been that difficult for him? None of the troopers would answer me. The one in the driver's seat, talking on his own radio, turned on the vehicles. He turned the dial and some broadcast station or another came in. I started to listen to the voice of a radio announcer I was familiar with. It was conducted at the Prime Minister's office. In regards to questioning from the press that the SDF not responding to the responding to the disaster promptly was directly related to this unprecedented, unheard of catastrophe. Chief Cabinet Secretary Okuno had this to say. And so, I believe that once the SDF received a dispatch order from the prefectural governor, they responded calmly. According to him, the SDF was prompt to respond to the crisis after receiving the orders. He implied that it was the prefecture's responsibility for taking too long to comprehend the situation. When did the governor who requested the SDF's dispatch actually become aware of the outbreak of such an unprecedented catastrophe? And did he not invite further damage because of the time lost before he sent the request for disaster relief? In other words, because of the bureaucracy? We are awaiting further investigation into the matter. That was Mr. Okada reporting from the Prime Minister's official residence. At this point, we can take another look at the political response following this disaster. In the middle of the night, between June 21st and June 22nd, a large-scale disaster broke out in Hinamizawa village, Shishibone. The details have not yet been investigated. There was an eruption of volcanic gas from somewhere in the Hinamizawa area. The gas was relatively heavy, and as it spewed out, it began to flow. That flow went down along a small river and headed directly into Hinamizawa village. After a few hours, it had covered the entire region. It happened in the middle of the night, 2 a.m. to 4 a.m. Every home and every household in the village was afflicted. With most of the residents asleep, it was thought that they all died without noticing the crisis. The catastrophe striking in the middle of the night caused its detection to come too late. But there was still one small opportunity to have noticed it. 3 a.m. A news dealer's shop in Okinomiya sent a vehicle carrying the morning newspaper to its branch office in Hinamizawa. Usually, the shop would be contacted upon the vehicle's arrival, but this morning that didn't happen. The news dealer's shop made repeated calls but got no response. The shopkeeper sent his eldest son to check on things, but they lost contact with him as well. It is extremely regrettable. If they had contacted the police or fire department at this point, it is highly possible the situation would have turned out more positively. At the very least, it's possible that a portion of the village might have been saved from tragic annihilation. 6 a.m. Residents in areas in the same region began continuously calling 119 to report the smell of rotten eggs, dizziness, nausea, and headaches. The fire department received the same reports, all from the same confined region. They speculated a truck loaded with chemicals may have gotten into an accident and reported it to the local police. 6:30 a.m. Contact was lost with a patrol car on duty in the Hinamizawa area after the officer reported the smell of rotten eggs. The local police considered the possibility of a large-scale disaster involving highly lethal gas and reported it to the prefecture and prefectural police at 7:15 a.m. 8 a.m. The governor was traveling to nearby prefectures for inspection, so in accordance with regulations, the prefectural environment disaster prevention chief was provisionally escalated to Director General and set up a disaster countermeasures office. However, without contacting the governor, the countermeasures came too late. As has recently been pointed out by citizens groups, his trip with honorary Diet members to inspect other prefectures was based solely on good relations, and it's rumored they preoccupied themselves with a drinking party. Sources closer to him claimed the governor had been drinking all night and had gone to sleep in a drunken state. He was completely drunk when the environmental chief phoned him as well, and apparently he could not get him to pay any attention to the matter. And so, it took about an hour for the governor to sober up, gain an understanding of the situation, and gather information. Though not as extreme as the governor's case, the environmental chief, who became Director General in the governor's absence, will also likely be questioned about his negligence. In addition, without any procedures in place on the prefecture's side that predicted catastrophes this massive, they would always react too late, and that ended up being fatal. 9:12 a.m. On the advice of the prefectural police, the governor requested a disaster relief mission from the SDF. By the time the chemical defense unit, equipped with protective equipment, arrived on the scene, 8 hours had already passed since the incident's outbreak. Whatever the case, it was unfortunate this happened while everyone was sleeping in the middle of the night. Had the same disaster occurred during the day, it likely would have happened entirely different. All households in the Hinamizawa village region were wiped out. There were over 1,000 victims. The SDZF is still confirming the situation on the ground, but their results are predicted to only increase that number. Here with us in the studio today is Dr. Fujiwara, a professor at University who is well acquainted with volcanic disasters. Doctor, can such a sudden and horrible outburst of poisonous gas actually happen? It isn't at all unusual for this to happen right around craters, at least. Japan is a volcanic nation, and so has many active volcanoes. There is always a danger of hazardous gas around any of these craters, and it's generally a rule among mountain climbers not to go near them. Does this mean the rotten egg smell that visited Hinamizawa village was the normal sort of gas from volcanic craters? Judging by how it smelled like rotten eggs, we think it was hydrogen sulfide, a gas seen particularly frequently in accidents compared to other volcanic gases. If it's dense, it becomes extremely dangerous. Hinamizawa village is very far away from the craters of any volcanoes. Could hydrogen sulfide be generated even from a place not close to a crater? I don't know all the details, so I can't say anything concrete, but in other cases, there are records of gas eruptions due to magma buildup under hot springs. It's an extremely rare event, but it is possible for such a thing to happen even in a region not near craters. Thank you very much, Doctor. We appear to have an announcement from the Japan Defense Agency. Miss Morikawa, are you there? Yes, I'm at the Japan Defense Agency. The agency has just made an announcement regarding the source of the Hinamizawa village gas disaster. Analysis from the Ground Self-Defense Forces Department of Chemistry has found that the gas was a mixture of carbon dioxide and hydrogen sulfide. Miss Morikawa, do you know whether the gas is still erupting or spreading to nearby areas? According to the SDF's 9th Division, who are currently engaged in a rescue operation at Hinamizawa village, the gas density is steadily decreasing. They've announced that the damage will not spread. However, it does not change the fact that the surrounding areas are still in danger, and that very strict observation must be maintained. That was Morikawa from the Japan Defense Agency. And now we have a report on the state of those who have been made to evacuate the Okinomiya area. Shimoshinozaki Elementary School is one of the evacuation sites, and we currently have a report scene. Wait, what? Inside the jeep, clambering and bouncing along the rough road, none answered my muttered question. An unprecedented catastrophe had destroyed Hinamizawa in a single night? Where was Hinamizawa village, anyway? Someplace deep in the mountains, right? Names of places I'd heard about on the radio were always like that. They were all places I'd never heard of, much less knew the locations of. Wiped out. What does that mean? Don't they usually say how many died and how many were injured? How many people were alive? Where did everyone evacuate to? Eventually, we came into view of Coach's clinic. For the first time, I saw the flag of Japan hanging on a pole outside. Japan's circular sun hung down as though exhausted. Many SDF tents were set up in the clinic's big parking lot, and many strict security vehicles were parked there as well. When they saw the jeep coming, men in white clothing and gas masks came running out of the clinic, frantic, carrying a stretcher. You're going to be all right. How do you feel? Can you walk? Yes. Ow, ow. And because of my ows, they forced me to lay in the stretcher anyway. People who seemed like doctors were looking at me and notifying others of my condition via radio. Multiple wounds, high possibility of fractures and internal damage, large laceration in the head. Pupils normal, but even without bleeding from the fundus, brain damage is still possible. And then, from the clinic entrance, people lying on stretchers were brought outside to replace me. Judging by their clothing, they were from Hinamizawa, and that's how I knew they were victims. They brought the stretchers in front of a truck. 2 troops holding shoulders and legs. Like some kind of baggage. Picked them up and threw them into the trunk. What? What? Ah! Ah! In the trunk of the truck, people's bodies, piled in heaps. They were just like baggage. And that told me they were nothing but shells. At that moment, I remembered. All those colorful sacks filling the trunks, and them lined up in the schoolyard like a fish market. Hundreds of empty shelves. Corpses, 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 corpses! You jackasses, don't just throw the victims in like that! They lived here! The troops carrying the sacks answered me with a humble salute. The world didn't need this insane version of Hinamizawa. My final wish. Again, it was granted. I didn't understand anything anymore. None of it mattered. I wished, I cursed, and then it happened the next day. And please, tomorrow morning, let me die. That insane night, it's still going on. Please, let it end already. Please end already. Hey, he's lost consciousness. Shout his name, quickly. Mayabara-kun, can you hear me? If you can hear me, just blink. Mayabara-kun, Mayabara-kun, Mayabara-kun. Suddenly, the world didn't matter to me anymore. I wasn't interested in their cries. His breathing stopped. Get his respiratory tract open. Use CPR. Make him live. Damn it, damn it. No more dead people. Nobody deserves to die. Don't kill him. Don't kill him. I hear the voices of a man crying and screaming in my ears. Nobody deserves to die. Those words came from his heart. They were so commonplace. And they soaked into my heart, too. Maybe it was a mistake. Take someone's life, even if it was to save Satoko. If this is the price I had to pay. This horrible tragedy. Then this is a little much, Oyashiro-sama. Why did you never punish me? Come to think of it, Satoko said something. Oyashiro-sama's actual curse never goes for the target at first. It kills everyone they love before that. Oyashiro-sama's curse was just a convenient excuse I told myself at the very end. That it wasn't my curse that destroyed it, but Oyashiro-sama's. Given that I was in a stretcher, this next bit might have been obvious. But last of all, I realized one thing. Yeah. Today, I had not heard those footsteps following me. Even once. And now, I was liberated. As the cries of the Higurashi I couldn't have been hearing filled my mind, their tearful ensemble was the only funeral march I had. Liberation. June 22nd, 1983, early morning. A widespread disaster occurred in Hinamizawa village, Shishibone, Blank Prefecture. Volcanic gas, carbon dioxide, and hydrogen sulfide erupted from Onigafuchi Swamp, one of the Hinamizawa area's water sources, and spread towards the entire village. There were 1,200 victims. 20 have gone missing. The catastrophe was unprecedented, forcing local governments to evacuate approximately 600,000 people. According to later investigations, magma pools and hot springs were discovered directly under Onigafuchi Swamp, and the gas that gushed from it was determined to be the cause of the disaster. In addition, directly after the incident broke out, many came forth claiming the disaster was a curse based in Hinamizawa village legends, first sparking a wave of chaos. There were apparently local legends of a curse spreading a miasma, destroying the village, and some scholars believe a similar gas disaster may have happened in the past and remained part of these legends. More extreme periodicals suggested this was an extension of the string of freak death incidents that had been happening in the recent years of Hinamizawa village during interest in theories about this curse of Oyashiro-sama. In addition, relatives of those in Hinamizawa village who had escaped the disaster complained of sickness afterwards and were hospitalized. Some of them even died out of unknown causes, further encouraging such extreme opinions. On top of that, several relatives professing to be possessed by Oyashiro-sama's curse committed suicide in strange ways, and the impact of the disaster has had on the entire nation can no longer be ignored. Wild visions of terrible toxic gas sneaking around in the middle of the night, killing people, spilled across the country, causing a steady stream of people complaining of insomnia, difficulty breathing, headaches. Doesn't something like this happen in real life? Some who identified themselves as being obsessed by it began doing odd things. Most of these cases were mistakenly attributed by the tabloid press, but afterwards some even began to call the mental issue arising from the Hinamizawa tragedy the Hinamizawa Syndrome. The Hinamizawa village region, the object of all kinds of rumors and speculation, is currently closed off, and even flying overhead is prohibited. The prohibition was, at one point, undone as a result of a decrease in the gas's density, but that autumn another gas burst was confirmed, leading to the area being cordoned off again. Word is that the area is sound asleep, all traces of its former life intact and left to rot. Only one survivor remains. Keiichi Maibara, age blank, who lived at blank Hinamizawa village. At the time of rescue, he had some trouble breathing due to fluid buildup in his lungs. As a result of life-saving procedures, he was kept alive. He is currently in a general hospital somewhere in the prefecture. The press have been asking for him for some time, but all interviews are being refused. What did he see at Hinamizawa? What happened between June 21st and June 22nd in Hinamizawa village? Today, he remains silent, unwilling to speak of it. Hey, I was reading that. Jiro Tomitake, real name unknown, possibly committed suicide in the village on June 19th. Investigation suspended. Mio Takano strangled to death on June 19th. Crowd Oishi went missing. Investigation continues. Atsuya Kamitani, dishes Irie, possibly committed suicide. Rika Fude, possibly murdered. Rena Ryugu died. Mion died. Orio died. Satoko went missing. Pepe went missing. Interesting. Ichiro died. Aiko died. Daiki died. Suguru died. Rumiko died. Kichiro, Kimiyoshi, Yukikazu died in an accident while fleeing. Oh no. No, Kasai! Oh no, Shion committed suicide. No! No! I scroll back up. No, that went too fast. Ah! Fuck, man. Mini games? What mini games? Oh, like on the website, maybe? (2003) late summer. An elderly couple living in Osaka Prefecture discovered a cassette tape while organizing the possession of their son. Passed away 8 years ago. That'd be 1995. Their son went missing when... Oh, okay. His fishing boat capsized in 1985. He was 47 at the time of his death. 8 years later, in 2003, they had begun to organize their son's remains in order to organize their minds. We came across the cassette tape in question. From 1975 to 1989, the deceased had experienced working as a journalist for a photographer periodical, and this tape is thought to have been created during that time. The label on the tape read 11/28/1983, Keiichi Maibara. It is thought that the tape was recorded during an interview with Keiichi Maibara, the only survivor of the great Hinamizawa disaster that occurred in June of 1983. As the only person who lived through the disaster on the night of June 21st, shrouded in mystery, many interested parties attempted to question him, but he never once spoke physically to anyone in a public place. Therefore, the tape caused quite a stir, possibly being of extremely high value. Click. Really hard to talk about stuff when I know I'm being recorded. Please don't worry about it. Here, it won't be a problem if I do this, right? After this, the sound quality dramatically decreases. Did he cover the recording device with something? Then let's get started. Here's my first question. H-kun, where were you the night of the great disaster? I had gone behind a shrine, then took a path through the woods for a while. There's a rope bridge there. A little while before you get into the mountains. I fell from there and lost consciousness. Did this happen during the night of the disaster, between the 21st and 22nd? No, it was the morning of the 21st, on Tuesday. Which means I woke up the afternoon of the next day. I think I was out for a day and a half. Why on earth were you there? I mean, I'm sure everyone wants to know, but the bridge you fell from that day, a weekday, I might add, was quite far from both your house and the school, wasn't it? Speaking frankly, there are some who say you knew of the great disaster beforehand, and fell from the rope bridge as you were trying to flee the village. This isn't a joke. Please don't be so arbitrary about this. I think it's a terrible thing to say, too. Please don't be offended. Anyway, about the rope bridge you fell from, it was right here on the map, right? This rope bridge beyond the back of the shrine and through the path in the woods. Probably. I never went over there, so I can't say for sure. I guess I just want to know why you were out somewhere you'd never been before on a weekday morning. And then, well, about the riverbed you fell unconscious on. Have you ever heard rumors about that being impossible? Have you heard the rumors about that being impossible? Impossible. That word. Again? Again. For a little while, Keiichi Mayabara mutters the word impossible several times. Why would it be impossible? You know how the volcanic gas originated in the Onigafuchi swamp? Some scholars did pretty delicate simulations and modeling and discovered something very interesting. The volcanic gas was heavier than the air, so it went along the ground, flowing into lower and lower places, kind of like what water does. And with the Onigafuchi swamp as its source, they were able to test how much time it would take for the gas to erupt and spread across the whole village. So, well, that riverbed you were unconscious on, the gas, it would have flowed down there. I don't really understand what you're getting at. In other words, if you were really passed out on that riverbed, you would have been in the middle of all the toxic gas that was spreading everywhere that night. That means there was no chance you could have been passed out there. Allow me to be a little more frank. I think that maybe you might be telling a lie. During the Great Disaster, you were hiding in a safe place, keeping an eye out for when the gas got thinner, then reappeared and were secured by the SDF. How about that? Is that right on the mark? For a short time, the journalist presses Keiichi Mayabara in a teasing way, but all that can be heard are heavy sighs. Even if that was the case, I wouldn't be surprised at that point. What do you mean, you wouldn't be surprised? The fireworks. Was this recording really taken of Keiichi Mayabara? Some harbor suspicions. You said it before, didn't you? That it was impossible. Impossible things happen in that Hinamizawa all the time. There are people who shouldn't exist. Dead people end up alive. It's not really that unusual. Never thought I, of all people, would be asked to prove that I was still alive when I was supposed to be dead. The journalists and Keiichi Mayabara both laughed for a while. To verify its authenticity, others in the Mayabara family checked tapes with his voice in it. However, the sound was not clear and much time had passed, so relatives I checked with couldn't remember what he sounded like. I was unable to gain positive proof it was actually Keiichi Mayabara's voice. Alright then, I'll change the subject. What do you think of the debate about whether this disaster was the curse, the 5th year of the serial freak death incident in Hinamizawa? I don't think it was. I was the curse that year, after all. Oh, what do you mean? What do I was just answering the question. Doubts also remain regarding the date 11/28 written on the tape. The curse, well, you probably won't believe me when I tell you this. I was the one who caused it. I was the one who wished for the whole village to die, and it happened. What an exciting story. Exciting? Suppose you could call it that. After Keiichi Maebara's failed suicide attempt on a certain August day, 2 months after the disaster, he was diagnosed with a mental disorder and transported to a treatment facility. I was the one who killed Takano-san and Coach and Oishi, too. At the time, I had some kind of divine power. Yes, I suppose it was like footsteps. Footsteps? Wait, what's that supposed to mean? Have you never heard footsteps before? Tip, tap, click, click, coo. The facility never allowed any news coverage, so it is extremely unlikely that a tape from the media dated after August 1983 would have had his voice in it. Today, when you're walking around, try stopping suddenly. Something interesting will happen. Anyway, if you hear any extra footsteps, even though you'd already stopped walking, you'd better be careful, you know? Yeah, I'll be careful. Is what I'm saying. Really that funny to you? However, the reporter had been criticized for his forceful methods of collecting data while he was active, though there was still a possibility that he broke into the facility and forced Keiichi Maebara to talk. You've been doing nothing but laugh in my face this whole time. You're just like Coach. You pretend to sympathize with me, to listen to what I have to say. Your eyes are telling me you think I'm a lunatic. That's not true. No, I can tell. Your eyes are the same as Coach's. Is this truly Keiichi Maebara's voice? The authenticity of this recording is still wrapped in mystery. I never heard the footsteps again after that day. I don't think I have that terrible power anymore. Perhaps, right here, right now, I'll wish for you to die. I wish for your death for saying all these unpleasant things. But yeah, this time, why don't I decide how you die? Takano-san was burned to death, so let's go with the opposite, with water. I hope you drown and die. How's that? 15 years after this tape was created, the reporter, just as Keiichi Maebara predicted, died in an accident out on the sea. If I'm in top form like I was then, you'd die before tomorrow morning for sure. Now then, wonder how many days it will take for you to drown. You'd better be careful, you know. Don't go getting yourself killed by some stupid curse I put on you, okay? The recording ends in the middle of Keiichi Maebara's laughter. And Keiichi Maebara late on the night of November 30th, 2 days after the interview, he suddenly died from a high fever, cause unknown. Records remain of the strange words he kept giving after pressing the call button the day before he died. An extra set of footsteps. Damn it, Hanyu, what were you fucking doing? Wait, no, you couldn't be Hanyu. No, thank you! Got the one. I know. Wait. A new scenario has been unlocked. All cast review session has become available. To play it, select extra on the title menu, then all cast review section, and then pick the boopity-bopity-beepity-boo. Well, I suppose we'll do that then. Let's do that! Start, continue, config, extra! And begin. Thank you very much for enjoying Higurashi When They Cry, Chapter 3, Tatarigoroshi. How did you like it? It had a different sort of atmosphere than the previous chapters. I would be happy if you enjoyed it. A bad end again, the type which we're so fond of, huh? Personally, I wanted to get a scene of the gas coming in, the villagers spasming and foaming at the mouth one by one before dying. Do you all think so too? Of course I do not think so. Again! It happened again! A huge bad end. Ii-chan, you sure seem happy about the bad end. Well, it's more like we can all honestly do. It's more like all we can honestly do at this point is laugh. The terrible endings have been escalating through each chapter, and it finally reached a culmination, I suppose. Everyone died together as friends. As friends! Nipa! I guess you could say that. I die every time, though, and I'm a little tired of it. It'd be nice to have an ending where I didn't die once in a while. Omitake-san, you're kind of like a news reporter. When you die, it's like, oh, we're in the second half now. Kind of. It's actually... Okay, now here are all the new character portraits that debuted in this chapter. Everyone give a big round of applause. First is Coach, Irie Kyosuke-san. I'm honored to have you... Wait a minute. Haven't they been... Hold on a minute. Wait a minute. Like... Oh. Yeah, this entire game, they've been doing the name order opposite, and then suddenly they oh, whatever, it's not a big deal, but kind of weird to just change it the last second like that. Anyway, I'm honored to have your introduction. Hello there. I was a minor character, but having a full portrait like this makes me really feel important. It's true. You had too many appearances and too much dialogue to be a minor character this time. I don't know if I'll appear in the next scenario, so please root for me. Thank you very much. Next up, we have Chie-sensei, who has been around since Chapter 1, but never had a portrait until now. Hello there, everyone. They've had me appear in school scenes ever since the first chapter, but for whatever reason, I didn't have my own portrait. I wonder why. Yes, I wonder. Oh, someone give Chie-sensei a seat, please. Okay, now everybody is here. You can do the honors again. Okay, everyone. Please pick up the cup nearest to you on your table. There are plenty of different drinks. These after parties have really gotten lively. How many do we have here now? Including us, I think there are about 10 people. Now we finally have the same number of minors and adults. We can all drink without being ashamed. Speaking of beer, how is it that something so delicious when cold turns so bad when warm? One of the 7 wonders of the world, I say. I wonder why. Okay, I'll pour some beer. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Huh? There were 6 adults here? Me. I would like the foamy barley tea as well. Mika-chan, you can't drink. Anyway, Rena-san, let's get this moving. Well, okay. Can I have everyone's attention, please? All right, everyone. Excellent work on the Tatarigoroshi chapter. Cheers! Kampai! Yay! Clap, 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 clap. Okay then, let's get down to our traditional plot discussion. Still though, this chapter just confused us yet again. Well, if anyone has an opinion, please raise your hand. Wow, everyone's being so discreet. No hands? Then why don't I break the ice? Oh, excuse me, could you change the music, please? To something a little more mysterious. Yeah, that's good. The mood has been set. Alright, Takano-san, take it away! I think that just by poring over the Tatarigoroshi story, the mystery won't be revealed. I know what you mean. Obviously, that's how the stories have been set up. Was there something like that in particular? I don't know if I'm right, but in Onikakushi, when Mayabara-kun was eating in the restaurant with Oishi-san, Onozaki-san found out, and it was a little mysterious, right? It was certainly mysterious just in Onikakushi, but after reading Watanagashi, a few things made a lot of sense. When I mentioned a restaurant with cute uniforms during the story, it must have meant Angel Mort. Angel Mort is owned by the Sonozaki family, so... Someone who knew Kei-chan was there too and told me. It actually makes a good amount of sense, right? That's what we mean. There are subtle differences in the Higurashi stories, but I think there's 3 facets that are the same for each. The character settings, for example. I was scary in Onikakushi, but that wasn't only because it was Onikakushi. It was because my character was the exact same in all 3 stories. That it? I agree with the characters being exactly the same. The most extreme case being me dying in the same way, in the same place every time. No matter which story it is, you always die on the same day. There's a scene where during Watanagashi, Takano-san and Tomitake-san sneak into the ritual implement storehouse. The same scene may have still happened in the other stories, even though it wasn't portrayed. I think it still happened, save for a few events, the weather, the day of the festival, what we did in the club, and Satoko's uncle coming home. It's almost all the same. Which means we have a bunch more questions. If the stories are told in exactly the same environment each time, why do they end up being so different? If we think in a general sound novel type of way, sometimes the story branches depending on choices, right? So like, if in Watanagashi you had given the doll to my sister, an unavoidable bad end from a choice so early on. That's pretty scary. Well, in Tatarigoroshi, maybe whether you decide to kill the uncle or not. I think it was way before that. I think it branched back when the uncle's lover disappeared because of some trouble and he returned to Hinamizawa. Then what was the first branch in Onikakushi? I think it was when I appeared and started talking about the serial freak death incidents related to Yashiro-sama's curse. You know, I just thought of something. If Keiichi-san gave the doll to Mion-san, and if Oishi-san and my uncle hadn't appeared, would we not have spent our time in peace without anything happening? I see. Satoko's gotten right to the point. You're right! You can say that again! Then maybe we should pray Oishi-san and her uncle don't show up in this dark story, and then if we can prevent Sonozaki-san from getting in a bad mood, everyone will be happy. Yay! Big sis, you're needed for the bad ending! Be careful, everyone. If you make my sister mad, you're sure to get a bad end. What are you saying? Shion! Next time I'll pound... Hails it to you without mercy. Bang, bang. Just you wait. We can't solve any of the mysteries thus far, but we seem to have put together a plan for how to get the story to end happily. I wonder if that would really make us happy. Oishi-san and Teppei Hojo-san don't show up. Mion-san gets the doll. Is that all we have to make sure of? You're right. We're all forgetting the most important thing. Remember the great Hinamizawa disaster? You cannot prevent natural disasters. Should we have everyone in the village put on gas masks and move away? It's probably Oyashiro-sama's curse. We need to make sure not to make Oyashiro-sama angry. This is getting a little tricky. We mustn't anger Oyashiro-sama, eh? And what should we do in order to prevent that? The dam project itself was probably out of the question. Maybe if there was never a dam project in the first place? That would be hard. If it didn't happen, we would need a ritual to quell Oyashiro-sama's anger. Taking a sacrifice into the Onigafuchi swamp. A ritual sacrifice. A sacrifice? Who do we sacrifice? Come on, use your head. Someone who dies no matter what happens. If he's gonna die anyway, then we might as well have it help out Hinamizawa. When you say dies no matter what, you're talking about me, aren't you? I knew all along. I knew you had some very important role in this story, Jiro-san. We'll get you to play your part. And with that, we have a blueprint for getting a nice, happy, good ending, don't we? Let's give it a try since we have time. Everyone involved, come over here! First, we stop Uncle Hojo, whose lover ran out on him from returning to Hinamizawa. Hiya, my name's Uncle Hojo. He has no portrait, so I'm standing in. I'm so lonely and blue because my lover ran away. Time to go back to Hinamizawa, lock up Satoko-chan, and haha, raise her into a maidservant. Why don't I take my motorcycle back? I'll just put in the key and click, click, kaboom! Judgment! To ashes and dust you shall return! Shall you return? Satoko-chan, don't you think this is a little too much gunpowder? I hope Coach is alright. What? Next, we stop Oishi from showing up. Me this time? My name is Kuralba Oishi, a hot, good-looking middle-aged man who looks like a blues singer. And my car has air conditioning. Kaboom! Eee! Judgment for you! And lest we forget a follow-up service for my sister. Come here, big sis. There's a cute little doll for you. Ah, how nice. I'm not really understanding this. And finally, we must quell Oyashiro-sama's anger. Then, will our last actor please come up? Time fast, wrap him up and hang him. He'll sink for 3 days, right? I'm not that patient. Let's just get it over with. And with that, the case has been closed. The end. Oh no, all of a sudden this arm of mine is glowing with an awesome power. This pile of corpses is a pretty big deal. And there's some 4 fireworks. Huh? It's the phone. Hello? Oh, Keiichi-kun. Thanks for all your work. Yeah, it looks like you're all having a roaring old time. Yeah, here I am busy with reading the scenario for the next story. Whatever. I'm in a good mood today, so I'll let you off without any teasing. Is she on there? Can you put her on? What? You're going to announce it here? I wanted to keep it secret for a while longer, but okay. A secret between Shion-san and Keiichi-san. What do you mean? Nobody told me about this. Nobody. Okay, Keiichi-san, let's say it at the same time. 1, 2, 3. The main character of the next story will be Shion Sonozaki. What? Yes, so that's that. The one topping the popularity charts since her first appearance. The late-appearing younger sister of twins has been the pattern of things ever since the days of TH. I have no idea what that means, and it doesn't matter. Anyway, I've been fired from my main character post for once. If the rumors are right, I might even get a portrait finally! Yahoo! Well, portraits of Kei-chan would be a big waste of disk space. If it couldn't fit all on one disc, there's a pretty high chance he'd be the first one dropped. Are you okay with this, Shion-san? The main character always meets some terrible fate in the end. Well, until now, but that doesn't necessarily mean it will happen next time. With Tatarigoroshi, we're already at the 3rd game in the Higurashi When They Cry series. This first half presented a lot of strange and exciting mysteries, but starting next time, the mysteries will start to be solved in the second half, marking the start of the investigation arc, temporary name. That means it'll be a thrilling story where I become a detective and solve all these crazy, unfair mysteries. You'd all better think up good signature phrases like, "You, sir, are the criminal." It won't happen! Never! You'll get too close to the 3 family secrets, be imprisoned, and then tortured! You're a shoo-in to meet a violent, unnatural death! I should say the same to you. Are you mentally prepared for me to see through all your mysteries and secrets that have you apologize to me and commit... Jesus! No chance of Oyashiro-sama's curse for me, is there? Anyway, The new story to begin the second half, temporarily called Meakashi or Eye Opening, is currently undergoing diligent development. We should be able to unveil it to you all in the near future, so I hope you'll look forward to it. Onikakashi, Watanagashi, and Tatarigoroshi. What truths will you all come up with after reading these 3 stories? Or will you just come up with more questions instead of theories? Haha! Erna has no clue either. Haha! For all of you warriors who never yielded to these 3 mysteries and kept on fighting, we present you with one final scenario as thanks for your enthusiasm, one which we never originally planned on giving to you. Please enjoy it. I believe that is everything. I don't think... I know Umineko has 2 things, but I don't believe we do have that here. Let me just... Yes, I think that's it! Yeah! So that was a thing. It happened. I don't know, I guess we can start up, I don't know if I'm gonna do all of Higurashi, but, I think, you know what, fuck it, I feel like keep continuing, so let's do Onikashi next, which is the first one. I started with the third one, you know, so whatever. But, yeah, give me 1 second to just boot that up, and I'll see you in just a moment. So until then, citizens, BRB.